Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Recato of Recato Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And what is up? What is up? We have an early and short stream. Look at this hair. Oh my God. Look, I tried to last and I just couldn't. It happens to everybody. Eventually, sometimes it does. Sorry. Look, here's the deal. I had some not an emergency. I had some surprise plans pop up for tonight and was not ready for them to happen, but they're happening. And that means this stream has to be a little bit shorter. However, I have my normal routine in the morning, which means that I will be home and awake early in the morning. And that means I will be doing a follow-up live stream at 9:30-ish a.m. Central Time. Gonna shoot for that 9:30 number. And we'll yeah. And shoot for that 9:30 a.m. time frame for a follow-up stream in the morning. And we're gonna test out a little bit of a morning demographic. We'll see. I told you guys I'm trying to do some other shows. I was not anticipating doing an early show this early, but we'll give it a shot and see how that goes. But ultimately, you know, I just don't have the ability to do a full show tonight because of kind of a change in what I thought was going to happen. With that, we're going to go about an hour. We're going to hit two topics pretty hard. And then we're going to wrap up the show likely after that. There may be some, riffraff here and there, like Attorney Tom there in the chat. Hey, what's up, buddy? I owe you like 15 million phone calls. Someone says, get a haircut. I want to. I actually tried to get one yesterday. Yeah, it wasn't today. I think it was yesterday. I tried to get one and they were not open. I would have gone today, except I was not home at all. I got home like 8. Yeah, so I had an hour of sleep last night, and then I had to leave my house at 7:20 in the morning, and I got back home at 8. It was like 8. Yeah, it was 8:15 p.m. And then I had to take a nap, and then I had to get up and do this stream. So it was great. So with that, we are going to hit this pretty quickly. The first topic tonight will be an update. The Billy Mitchell settlement. Kind of walked through some thoughts about the settlement yesterday, but there's new information out. It is not fully confidential. There is a statement from Billy Mitchell that he has put out on Twitter. And this statement changes the analysis entirely. So that's wild. Let's see if Twin Galaxies has a statement put out today. They do not have one. Pretty wild that they are not making a statement, but Billy Mitchell is. Maybe that is part of the agreement. But Billy Mitchell has put out a statement on the Twin Galaxies settlement, which, since it is a settlement, we can assume that the ability to put one out is part of that, not breaching confidentiality. And it changes the entire analysis, the entire fucking analysis of what has happened in the settlement. And it's really, really good news for Billy Mitchell. There's probably some give somewhere in there, but it looks like he kind of cleaned house for the most part. There is a little bit of a community note, and it gives us a clue as to what the other part of the settlement for Twin Galaxies might be. But And I also think there's an interesting message in here for record keeping companies like Twin Galaxies, like Guinness, that I've kind of touched on earlier in the suit. I mean, this would have been years ago, so maybe stretching my memory, but I'm pretty sure we touched on this a little bit at the beginning of this thing when it was all popping off. And I was laughing at the fact that Billy Mitchell was suing people. I did think it was funny that he brought these lawsuits against Twin Galaxies and Guinness. And I actually thought it was really funny when Guinness settled. And I do think the idea of a defamation lawsuit against companies that keep records and then take them away, that is potentially defamatory as long as, if they call you a cheater unjustly. Where I did not like Billy Mitchell's actions hovered around a cool guy named Carl Jopes. And I think Billy went after him. He went after someone else. And I did not think that the defamation suits against those people and leveraging the courts against, commentators and researchers and journalists was the appropriate thing to do. I wasn't happy about that. But I thought the idea of these lawsuits against Twin Galaxies and Guinness was novel. And a bunch of people jumped down my throat for that, but that's okay. It's funny. And it didn't have to do with me, so it was double funny. But we're going to talk about the update in the settlement, what it means, as far as we can tell, what it is, what Billy Mitchell's statement on it is, and why it's really important for him to do this. I just think it's, guys, wildly interesting how this panned out. And I really have no idea how this is the negotiated settlement from Twin Galaxies. This is, maybe he gave him a fat check. I can't imagine it, but maybe he did. Maybe he did. It's very funny to me. All right. We'll see how that goes. Then another one. This is another important Trump case. Special counsel Jack Smith, in investigating Donald Trump for the grand jury investigation, was able to get access to Donald Trump's Twitter information, which is pretty interesting because I'm not sure even Trump was able to get access to his own Twitter account information. But, special counsel Jack Smith was able to do that. And he was able to do it without Trump knowing about it. And this is fucking insane. The idea that a special counsel can investigate a president's communications without the opportunity for a president to be informed, president, former president, doesn't matter, and potentially assert executive privilege over those communications is a very troubling ruling. Very troubling ruling. It is not ideal. And it sets Trump up for yet another potential Supreme Court case. And I mean, I hate to say it, there's so many Supreme Court cases, or so many cases that the Supreme Court should take up regarding Donald Trump, because these are critical constitutional matters that need rulings. They need definitive rulings from the Supreme Court, not from the fucking DC Circuit. And so, guys, thanks, Hair. Nice to meet you. We keep seeing this stuff pop up, and it's like, the court's got to hear this. But you think, man, the court's going to just be hearing from Trump the entire session. It's just going to be a Trump session. And maybe that's what needs to happen. But we'll figure that out. We'll take a look at it. There's probably other stuff to talk about tonight, but we will get into that. Again, if you're joining now, a little bit later, the stream is going to be about an hour long tonight, and then there will be a follow-up stream tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Central Time is the target for that stream. Should be able to have that going. The link should be available sometime between 8:30 and 9 a.m. We'll see what other news stories there are. There may be some interesting stuff going on to watch live. Oh, big update in the Iowa caucuses. Ron DeSantis cleans house over Nikki Haley and takes second place, looking so far behind at Trump's rolling train that the tracks have been dismantled, and he's now walking down an abandoned strip of railroad. But it's God, look at this hair. Oh, I can't wait to get that cut. It's there's nothing interesting to me about the Iowa caucuses. Everybody, like, the media is making a big deal out of it. It was predictable. Who cares that DeSantis won second place? That's the only way to win when Trump was in the field. And who cares that Nikki Haley won third? And who cares if Vivek dropped out? Nobody on any of this stuff. So with that was just a mild update from yesterday, since that technically I don't think had been called by the time the show ended. But you thought Mitchell's statement was a loss for him? I disagree, but we will see. Carl Jobst is friends with Vito. You should try to get him on. I've had Carl Jobst on the show before. I would love to talk to him about this issue. Look, I'm going to go into an analysis and just give some opinions on the settlement. This is not an opinion on whether or not Billy Mitchell cheated or deserved what he got or anything like that. I know it's really hard for people to do this, to separate the idea of looking at what was done legally versus what is quote unquote right. But lawyers do this all the time. Like, you defend positions you don't agree with for the client. Hell, most criminal defense, you don't agree with the crime that was allegedly committed. You don't really agree with that, but you take the position that your client's not guilty, and your client's not guilty until they are. So it doesn't matter what they're accused of or how good the evidence is. You take the position that they're not guilty until they are guilty. But that being said, what we're going to talk about is the settlement itself. Has nothing to do with the facts. And that is settlement. That is settlement ultimately. Facts can inform the leveraged position of a settlement. Facts can inform your bargaining power. Facts can, and the law too, can inform, how much you can squeeze out of the other side, how much you can prevent of your own loss. That's what they're for in settlement. They don't matter, though. They are not in any way indicative of what the settlement terms will be, other than what you can use them for. It's not like the settlement has to reflect reality at all. The settlement is just an agreement. It is a contractual agreement between two parties to do things. And that contractual agreement literally just says we are no longer suing each other because we have a contractual agreement. You can have a contractual agreement to stop suing over anything. The settlement can be whatever you want. So that's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting how that is working out. And I know I see people saying what Twin Galaxies is having to do here. And I got it. But just hear me out. Under the facts that exist, Billy Mitchell pulled off a pretty fucking interesting little squeeze play here. So as we look at that, we'll talk about it. Again, it's just my opinion. And you got to approach this. You got to approach the idea of looking at settlements and from the position of the client and what you can do best for them. And Billy Mitchell's lawyers were able to squeeze out something that is unexpected in this case. And Twin Galaxies lawyers squeezed out a giant turd on a platter, unless they got a fat check. But I have a feeling Twin Galaxies doesn't have any money, like of any real capacity. I wonder, Twin Galaxies, a company, they have any sort of I wonder what the fuck this company is worth. I just cannot believe this company would be worth much money at all. And I think that might be a big problem for how this worked out. But anyway, let's check this out. Kimberly Ashcraft, welcome to Paralegal. Mal Carrion says, please, for the love of God, stay out of the Eric July Yellow Flash EVS drama. I'm out. Camelot is free of it. I've made my opinion clear. I don't even fucking care what is going on between them. No one has talked to me about it. No one at all has asked me shit. And I think, look, not to be weird about this, but there are multiple tiers of friendship online. Yellow Flash and Ethan Van Sciver are closer friends to me than Eric July ever was. And I think both of them kind of know my position on this stuff. I don't want to be involved. Neither of them has asked. Neither of them has talked to me. And blessings and peace upon them. Stay the fuck away. Stay the fuck away. I don't want to be anywhere near that. I know nothing about it. Mal Carrion, stay out of the drama. Camelot is free of it. Also, if you super chat Camelot $100, putting names on his car for Daytona, your boy is moving up and vrooming. Well, I'm not going to super chat Camelot shit. Not going to do that. Nozaku says, oh, Nick learned his lesson. No, you don't understand how this works. You don't understand how this works, but that's okay. Holy shit. All right, let's get to it. We're not going to dwell on this shit. We're going to move through these stories and we're going to get going. Okay. So yesterday we talked about the Billy Mitchell settlement, which was confidential, with just some details from the actual article from Ars Technica, which is very sparse. Today, Billy Mitchell dropped a Twitter post with an official statement. And now readers have added context to it, which makes it fun and interesting. But this gives us a little bit of juice here to analyze this from a little bit different capacity. He says, Twin Galaxies has reinstated all of my world records for my video game career. Here is my statement. It's a statement from Billy Mitchell. Is today, January 16th, 2024. Twin Galaxies has reinstated all of video game world records that I achieved in my career, effective immediately. Twin Galaxies' statement on its website reads in pertinent part. Oh, we're going to have to check out the full part. Quote, in fair consideration of the expert opinion provided by Dr. Zaida on behalf of Mr. Mitchell, and consistent with Twin Galaxies' dedication to the meticulous documentation and preservation of video game score history, Twin Galaxies shall heretofore reinstate all of Mr. Mitchell's scores as part of the official historical database on Twin Galaxies' website. He then follows, I am relieved and satisfied to reach this resolution after an almost 6-year ordeal and look forward to pursuing my unfinished business elsewhere. Never surrender, Billy Mitchell. Now, I don't know if this is an ominous statement about like suing people like Carl Jobst. I hope not. I hope he moves on from this thing and just he's got what he wanted here. And that's great. There is actually someone sent me the expert opinion of Dr. Zaida. And maybe, let me see how long that is, giggity. We may want to read that. How long is this report? It's a 2-page expert opinion. We're definitely going to read this shit in a second. So readers have added the context. Twin Galaxies has only reinstated Mitchell's scores on an archived leaderboard where rules were different prior to Twin Galaxies being acquired in 2014. His score remains removed from the current leaderboard where he continues to be ineligible by today's rules. And so people are saying this is not a victory for Billy Mitchell. I would disagree. I think this is actually a victory for Billy Mitchell. And this statement is pretty interesting in support of that. But first, let's check out Twin Galaxies. I want to see their statement on Billy Mitchell. I don't want that. News. Is it in the news? Twin Galaxies statement. Here it is. Oh, baby. Pulling it up and then I'll they have a long statement here. So here we go. This is their statement. So this is interesting. When you have a confidential settlement, that's fine. But they make statements. It makes the settlements a little bit more or a little bit less confidential, right? Because now we have information from each party, and these statements would be passed back and forth and agreed to by both parties before being distributed to the public. So a statement from Twin Galaxies. Billy Mitchell's Donkey Kong score performances of 1,047,200, the King of Kong score, 1,050,200, the Mortgage Broker score, and 1,062,800, the Boomers score, were originally accepted and posted as record performances by Twin Galaxies based on either videotape submission, live referee verification, or a combination of videotape submission, live referee verification. On February 2nd, 2018, Twin Galaxies adjudication began investigating a dispute claim filed by a community member asserting that these performances were not generated by unmodified original Donkey Kong arcade hardware as required by the leaderboard rules. On April 12th, 2018, Twin Galaxies removed all of Mr. Mitchell's scores and banned Mr. Mitchell from competing on Twin Galaxies' competitive leaderboards. This is centered upon a technical basis of what Twin Galaxies believed to be a demonstrated impossibility of original unmodified Donkey Kong arcade hardware to produce images shown in the videotaped recordings of some of the disputed adjudicated performances. The basis for this decision was an independent investigation by Twin Galaxies, supported by a series of detailed submissions, experiments, and analyses by Twin Galaxies and from the Twin Galaxies community, each with varying degrees of technical expertise and access to equipment. Wow. Recently, on behalf of Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Michael Zaida, an individual who holds a Bachelor of Arts in Computer and Information Science from the University of California, San Diego, a Master's of Science in Computer and Information Science from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and a Doctorate of Science from the University of Washington School of Engineering, and who has been qualified as an expert by California and federal courts, concluded that the gameplay on the subject tapes could in fact depict play on original unmodified Donkey Kong arcade hardware if the hardware involved was malfunctioning, likely due to degradation of components. Holy shit. Twin Galaxies is committed to ensuring fairness for all parties and to allow and consider any new information that becomes available. In addition, Twin Galaxies seeks to disclose all and any evidence so that individuals can form their own judgments. To this end, Twin Galaxies openly and publicly takes note of Dr. Zaida's expressed expert opinion in regard to providing a method by which the videotape content in question might have been produced. Twin Galaxies' mandate is to verify that submissions meet verification guidelines, not to investigate how they are produced. Ooh. This is a bad fucking statement for Twin Galaxies, man. This is a bad statement for Twin Galaxies, in my opinion. Holy shit. This calls into question all of their records. Because this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. And I will go back to that. Hold on. This latter area remains available to experts such as Dr. Zaida and other interested parties who may examine and assess these matters for their individual purposes. Twin Galaxies takes no official stance on the creation of submitted content, but can recognize and acknowledge Dr. Zaida's expert opinion. So they are saying, you know what? We made a mistake investigating how it was produced based on the opinions of community members. And even though we did our own investigation, we're not experts. Neither are the community members. This guy's a recognized expert, and fuck me. Now we're not going to do this ever again. We're only going to accept how these submissions are made. Now, this is kind of convenient for them because submissions being made now can be made with much simpler verification, or much more thorough, I guess, verification, just due to the nature of how video games are streamed and recorded constantly, and that this sort of area has developed. In fair consideration of the expert opinion provided by Dr. Zaida and on behalf of Mr. Mitchell, consistent with Twin Galaxies' dedication to the meticulous documentation and preservation of video game score history, Twin Galaxies shall heretofore reinstate all of Mr. Mitchell's scores as part of the official historical database on Twin Galaxies' website. Additionally, upon closing of the matter, Twin Galaxies shall permanently archive and remove from online display the dispute thread titled Dispute Zelnia Arcade Donkey Kong Points Hammer Allowed, player Billy L. Mitchell, score 1,062,800, located on the twingalaxies.com website, as well as all related statements and articles. So actually, this is an even better win for Billy Mitchell because they're removing, they are retconning and deleting the thread challenging Billy Mitchell's score on their website. It's being archived. The thread about it is being archived, so you can find it on the archive, but you cannot find it on the active website. All of the state. This is such a. You're wrong, Nick. He lost. Whoa. I mean, okay. Look, Billy Mitchell's scores are reinstated. They're reinstated as part of the preservation of video game score history, moved to the official historical database, blah, blah, blah. The thread questioning it is moved to the archives and deleted from the record or from their active website. I get it. Billy Mitchell's scores are not part of the modern leaderboard that happened after a rule change. Cool. Billy Mitchell still gets to claim valid submission of those scores. He still gets to claim that they're part of the official historical record and that Twin Galaxies has retracted their disqualification of those scores. Now, here's the problem for Twin Galaxies. We'll read Dr. Zaida's report in just a second. Here's the big problem for Twin Galaxies. Twin Galaxies made a big-time error in judgment here, and Guinness avoided it. Twin Galaxies made a statement by claiming that Billy Mitchell was the king of Kong, giving him these records. Years after these records are produced, years later, they come out where an independent reviewer questions the scores, okay? Now, Twin Galaxies, who has a verification process for submissions that has grown and evolved over time, but contemporaneous with the submission, decided his submission was valid and met all criteria, is now going to go back. They're going to go back based on the independent assessments of community members whom they don't actually know necessarily, haven't qualified, and they're going to undo what was done after they said it was valid. So they've claimed it's invalid now. They've called him a cheater. They've called him a liar or a fraud, and that's potentially defamatory. So he sues. But why is Twin Galaxies interested in pursuing the investigation based on the claims of people that they don't know? Now, I get it. I get it. Trust me. The idea is to make a thorough accounting and be meticulous about how you track these scores. But they already were meticulous about how they track the scores. The submission process was the verification process, and they had that and they adhered to it. By going back and undoing something based on a modern, independent review, they've now said effectively that their submission process was not good enough and that they're going to engage in this verification process, which at its core, hear me out, because even if it's true, it's questionable. It's questionable. They're reviewing VHS tapes of these scores and then concluding that the VHS tapes could not have been produced by original hardware. They may be completely right. They probably are completely right, to be honest. I've seen the analysis. It looks thorough. It's compelling. I don't fully understand it, but it doesn't matter. And that's the key, because now Twin Galaxies has fucking hamstrung themselves. First, they said their submission process wasn't good enough because they let in fake scores. Now they say the review process wasn't good enough because they found fake scores where they were actually real. And that's a problem. They have a huge credibility hit here. Now they're saying they're going to go back to their submission process as the sole province of how they judge records. And they're not going to allow independent parties to investigate at a later date and question the validity of the scores. If they were submitted appropriately, they are scored and they are record. That's effectively what the statement says. That's a big credibility hit for a record-keeping company. Had they not changed the records at all, had they acknowledged they could even asterisk it and said, this record is in dispute, but qualified under our submission standards at the time. Had they just done that, they probably would have avoided all this and preserved their credibility. Now, which way is credible? What's the correct way? Because everybody in the community on Twin Galaxies has got to be thinking, you cucks, you fucking bitched out. You know he faked it. And now you're going to sit there and say it's all valid. It's part of the historical record. I mean, you have this caveat. Well, it's not going to be on the current website. Well, so he doesn't need it to be on the current website. He needs to say that his scores were valid. He is the King of Kong. He's not a fraud. Whether people believe him or not, it is part of the record. He's still in Guinness. And that is where Guinness made the smarter move as a records company. Guinness said, you know what? Based on the criteria with which we determine video game high scores, which was in part Twin Galaxies record keeping and their verification process, we have kept the original scores that we've kept the original Guinness World Records that Billy Mitchell was awarded. That's huge for him. He still gets to be the Guinness World Records holder based on the initial submission criteria. That's what Guinness went back to. Hey, at the time they said this, we go back to this. We're reinstating him. Removing him was dumb. And they avoided a huge disaster that way. Guinness comes out on top in this. Twin Galaxies comes out low. Billy Mitchell comes out a little bit banged up, but ultimately he seems to be carrying the W here to me. Now, is this going to translate to his social media profile and his ability to promote himself? That's taken the hit. That is taking a hit, and that's going to be a permanent hit. That would have taken the hit if he won completely in court. People would still disbelieve it. That's just the nature of this. Won't fully absolve yourself. There will always be people. There are always going to be people who think Johnny Depp's an abuser. See, Embassy says Mitchell wins in court, but everyone knows he's a cheating liar. Let me counter that. Mitchell wins in court, and a small contingent of video game autisms who care about Donkey Kong scores know he's a liar. That is not everyone. That's not even everyone that matters. That's not even everyone that matters to Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell gets to promote himself as the Guinness World Record holding Donkey Kong scorer. I mean, to people who are not engaged in the Donkey Kong score community debacle, that's a huge fucking W for him. He also gets to point to Twin Galaxies historical archives handing him the score. He gets to do that. And unless his event is specifically focused on Donkey Kong scores and autism, rather than just the overall persona of the world record holder for Donkey Kong video games, and whatever else Billy Mitchell, like with his hot sauce empire, is up to, he gets to promote himself. And most people aren't actually going to be aware of this. This is such a niche sort of community. And trust me, as a normal, if you come up to me and talk to me about MAME emulation on a Donkey Kong machine, I'm going to ask where the German showers are so you can put me out of my fucking misery immediately. I do not ever want to hear about the analysis of a video, of a fucking videotape recording of a Donkey Kong score. Ever. The people who do are very minimal size community. They're an important community for certain things, but probably not for Billy Mitchell's purposes. And that's why this is a big win for him. He gets to say, I'm still the world record holder, according to Guinness, and my submissions were valid, according to Twin Galaxies. They've changed the rules, cleared the leaderboards, and but I still have my scores. They're still recognized in the historical archive. Boom. Great move, in my opinion, on Billy Mitchell's lawyer's parts. So let's read this statement by the doctor. The analysis from Dr. Michael Zaida. There are many people that have made strong statements on the technological possibilities and impossibilities they have personally discovered in the video recordings of Billy Mitchell's various gameplays of Donkey Kong. All of these tests are looking for the sources of the anomalies on the Billy Mitchell videotapes. Many claim to have wired their systems exactly as Billy Mitchell did, but in the end failed to achieve the same anomalies. Here's some of my opinions on these issues. When Billy is recording from the arcade machine running at 60 frames per second, he plugs that 60 FPS stream into a 2-bit converter box, the converter, and the converter outputs a 30 FPS stream to a VHS VCR for recording. There is no apparent sync signal from the 60 FPS device to the converter box outputting a 30 FPS stream. The purpose of the sync signal would be to make sure there's some kind of frame alignment. Without the sync signal and frame alignment, we actually don't know what the converter is really doing. If we had frame alignment, we would expect that 2 frames from the 60 FPS stream would be used to create 1 frame in such fashion. If we don't have perfect frame alignment, then we are going to see visual artifacts such as the anomalies at issue, and all of the analyses of the Billy Mitchell tapes rest on anomalies recorded in that fashion. Well, ouch. That opening statement is a banger in court. Remember, a jury hearing this statement from a doctor of computer science technology is not a Donkey Kong score forum peruser. And this is the hardest fucking thing for internet nerds to realize, is that the people in the jury are people who would shove you in the locker, not people who would listen to your nerddom. So when you're like, well, actually, this doctor's wrong, the jury doesn't know that. The jury's going to rely on that doctor and whatever credibility they think the doctor has. And you're going to have a better expert with a better explanation than this. And maybe you have one, but maybe you don't. And this kind of looks like Twin Galaxies doesn't have an actual competing expert who's ready to refute this, because they've recognized this expert opinion as devastating to their case. Ultimately, this is bad news for them. What's up, Good Logic and the Raiders? Welcome. We have not much show left, but welcome. Probably about 25 minutes to do this. So this first paragraph, seriously, that's a great paragraph for Billy Mitchell. B, another issue not well addressed is that of component aging. The Nintendo Donkey Kong boards are old and their various electronic parts are aging at different rates. This one is sketchier to me. As those components near failure, the potential for visual artifacts increases. This means there is no way to compare different Donkey Kong boards, as their component failures most likely are in different parts. This includes the power supplies that power the Donkey Kong boards. As those power supplies age, we have no way of measuring how that aging will impact the Donkey Kong board's operations and visual display. As such, there may not be any way to compare recordings from the same board done at different times. In my opinion, component aging could produce the anomalies at issue. You may not agree. I don't know if I agree with this one. But he's basically saying every Donkey Kong board is unique. And not only is it unique, it's unique to the actual time that it was used. Because if it was used again at a later date, further degradation could produce different artifacting. I don't buy this one that much. I think the first explanation is better. I don't buy this one as much, but hey, I'm not an expert. Another issue brought to mind is that of copies of videotapes. This is actually a really good one if the videotapes in question are actually copies of copies. Videotapes do degrade in quality with each subsequent copy. And they do produce tons of artifacts. I don't know if there's evidence of these videotapes being copied multiple times. But as videotapes are copied and handed out to someone who then makes copies, visual artifacts often appear as second and third generation and beyond copies are made. It is important to note that it is unknown how many generations of copies were created to arrive at the current videotapes. Another issue with respect to this is whether the videotape heads were cleaned before the copies were made. Videotape recorders were shit, including whether Billy Mitchell was cleaning his VCR's heads before he recorded that Donkey Kong play. It's my understanding that he was not. Who cleaned their VCR heads? And you got you go buy that $16 kit, but it's $16 in like the 80s, so it costs a lot more really today. You run the thing in there and it's got the felt pads and the VCR heads. But who did that? Like, you buy it, no one did it because you had to put that juice on there. It was weird. Is my understanding that he was not. Further, it is my understanding that Billy Mitchell recorded his tapes at long play, save on the cost of videotapes. That's a big resolution hit. Long play recordings are lower quality recordings and often record with much on tape visible noise. It is also my understanding that Billy Mitchell reuses videotapes without re-blacking. Oh, goddamn. Don't tell Piper Perry. Re-blacking the tapes beforehand with dirty record heads. This often means that previous recording information will bleed through and be visible. In my opinion, this could produce the anomalies at issue. I don't know if people have ever gone back and watched a fucking videotape that was made. How we ever watched those things and thought we were watching anything is beyond me. It is so hideous. It is so fucking hideous. Lieutenant Dan 907 says, Nick, did you ever read your response to Snyder in your appeal? I've been looking for it in the back catalog, but I haven't found it. No, I haven't. I really should. It's a short and sweet response. It basically said they didn't address the fact that Colorado's anti-slap doesn't work the way they said. They just decided to ignore it. And it's only the most important part of the analysis, but we'll see. The wiring of test systems also seems to have the potential for causing visual anomalies. Questions like, do the video carrying cables drape over or near a power supply? Ooh, RCA cables and electromagnetic interference. And are the cables carrying the video shielded cables or unshielded cables? Do not seem well answered. These scenarios could also produce the anomalies at issue. Component aging with respect to the 2-bit converter is also a large issue. Recently, Neil Hernandez obtained a 2-bit converter from Billy Mitchell's garage in Florida and attempted to get it working with a Donkey Kong machine. It is my understanding the converter had been sitting in Billy Mitchell's unair-conditioned garage for many years. The initial connection showed completely wrong colors, so Neil decided to see if he could repair the converter. Neil's instincts as an arcade game technician told him he should start with the capacitors. Neil changed out the capacitors in the converter, and as a result, had an almost perfect picture output with proper colors. With replacing just the capacitors, Neil saw the girder finger on the monitor receiving the output from the rebuilt converter. Neil took one still picture of that girder. A copy of that picture is attached. Neil then replaced the old resistors on the converter board. When he completed that replacement of the resistors, the girder finger was no longer present. So component failure from the old resistors produced the girder finger in the converter in this case. Neil hypothesized that the decaying resistors were outputting the wrong voltage, and the new resistors fixed that. In my opinion, this is a reasonable hypothesis. So now he's explaining one of the visual anomalies specifically. I asked Neil Hernandez to rebuild the converter with old resistors to see if we could get a consistent girder finger output from that converter to the connected monitor. That experiment failed, likely because the combination of heat from the soldering gun and the fragility of the resistors finally made them completely stop working, with the converter failing to work at all after that experiment. However, Mr. Hernandez's experiment, which I saw recordings of, depict numerous anomalies, including different numbers of girder fingers, Mario teleporting around the screen, barrels rolling the wrong directions, including uphill, pies disappearing, and the hammer not vanishing when it is dropped. These resulting anomalies are consistent with my expert opinion that the gameplay on the subject videotapes, including the anomalies depicted, could be from original Donkey Kong hardware, and that the anomalies are the result of component degradation in the 2-bit converter. So with all of these potential sources of anomalies, and with all of the differing wiring and test configurations, it seems unlikely to me that definitive answers are readily obtainable from Billy's recorded play sessions, watched and single-framed on 2nd and 3rd generation and beyond videotape copies. The likelihood that 2-bit converter components would fail identically across multiple converters so that experiments could be attempted is unlikely and makes definitive answers from such tests unlikely. However, it is clear that the videotapes could depict gameplay on original Donkey Kong hardware despite the anomalies depicted. And that statement is fucking devastating to Twin Galaxies. That is, I mean, seriously, unless they have a competing expert who can definitively say that independent, because he basically said all of the independent tests are completely invalid. And here's the problem. You have an expert who's going to testify to a jury with a PhD that random internet users name like Congus Chongus 2017 are going to come out with their like video reproduction of why the anomalies are real. And he's going to say, yeah, all of these people can't possibly have tested anything like what Billy Mitchell used. It's an impossible thing to do. They can't have the same failure rates. The individual capacitors and resistors on the board have to be identical to produce any kind of test. In fact, all of the wiring, all of the circumstances around it have to be identical because we're talking about individual frame anomalies that have full explanation in 8-bit production, in VHS recording, in VHS reproduction, and in, just component degradation. Now, you may not agree, and this guy may not be telling the truth. I don't know. But fuck if you want that guy testifying in front of a jury and you don't have anything to counter it. And I bet Twin Galaxies didn't. Because they indicated this statement scared the shit out of them. So that's wild, man. I mean, this is seriously, to me, this is a Billy Mitchell victory on the case that he had. Does this make him not a liar? No, not necessarily. I have no idea if he's lying or not. Kind of looks like he was. Maybe he wasn't lying. That's the other thing. Maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe he thought he had an original component. I don't think so. I think he probably would know if he had a MAME emulator. But there is, I guess, sort of this theoretical possibility that he wasn't aware of some emulation. Who knows? Someone was saying resistors don't go bad sitting in a garage. Yeah, sure. They don't go bad sitting in a garage, but who knows how many times those machines were used leading up to Billy Mitchell's usage of them and following Billy Mitchell's record-setting usage of them. How do you know? There's no way to tell. And so while they may not degrade sitting in a garage, any subsequent use, having the thing plugged in at all, runs the risk of degrading it. Any electrical surges, I guess, could interfere with resistors and capacitors as well. All of that shit. I mean, that's some big analysis. And the fact that they were able to reproduce girders from original hardware. That's a pretty interesting part of it too. They weren't able to reproduce it, correct it, and then get it back to the original, but they were able to reproduce the girders on original hardware in their testing, allegedly. So you have to take the position that these guys are either completely wrong or lying. When you're talking about expert opinions, once they're qualified as an expert, man, their word is going to go really well in court unless they don't present it well, or unless you happen to have some guy who knows more than this on the jury who's going to like go back into the deliberation room and be like, yeah, that guy's full of shit. Here's why. Probably not going to have that guy on the jury, or you got to have your competing expert. Billy Mitchell has pulled off a very surprising W here. Now, does this mean that Billy Mitchell is going to be able to successfully sue people like Carl Jobst? Carl Jobst is in Australia. The defamation laws of Australia are not the same as the United States. And I really hope that Carl is not put through the ringer on this. And I actually hope that Carl ends up winning that case, because I don't think Carl is lying about Billy Mitchell at all. I think Carl is relying on his knowledge as a video games journalist, an independent video games journalist, who's looking at analysis from several people and making a determination that Billy used emulated hardware. I think that that is a reasonable conclusion, especially prior to Michael Zaida's opinion, which just came out in November of this year. And this shit goes back a ways now. We're talking about this shit going back to 2018. So I don't think that Carl Job's statements on the matter are going to be defamatory at the time. And that's a big, can he reasonably have made the statements that he made? Now, statements that he makes following this, he needs to be careful with any subsequent statements, in my opinion, because now there is new, credible evidence, so to speak, that he could use as a basis to change his mind. They also have a settlement now in which Billy Mitchell is the official historical record holder and is the Guinness World Records holder. So he could still try and claim that that Billy Mitchell used an emulator based on what he sees, but he's got to be careful with it, how he words it, and how he draws that opinion, and if he's factored any of this other stuff. Now, this guy, Michael Zaida, does not rule out that Billy Mitchell used an emulator. That's an important point for people like Carl. This guy didn't prove that he didn't use an emulator. He just proved that it might be possible that he didn't use an emulator. So I don't know that Carl could have spoken out about this with enough liability to be liable for defamation, but I'm also not in any way versed in how Australian defamation law works, so I can't tell you. But I will try and talk to Carl and see if he'd be willing to come on and explain what's going on in his life without compromising anything on the on his lawsuit. I never want to do that to people, but this is a really fucking interesting story how this worked out. Twin Galaxies lawyers, I have a theory that Twin Galaxies just doesn't have the money to fight this anymore. I really just don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. They're a massive company with a whole fucking ton of money, but they've been going after Billy's been going after them for 6 years, almost 6 years now. Something like that. That's expensive. And the fact that they don't have a competing expert to come out with an opinion to counter this guy since November 7th of 2023, they don't have something. Maybe they tried, but man, they had to look at this and go, shit, we're not doing great here. Not doing great. Here's the other thing. If Billy Mitchell takes a no money settlement, drops all costs or drops everything and just goes, hey, you just reinstate my shit. We'll make statements that I'm the King of Kong. Super cool. We part ways with me, the victor. That's awesome. You make your stupid statement about why you have to put my scores back up and you're going to take down the thread. You're going to take down that thread that challenges my scores. All that independent research, that's gone. Get out of it. Now, the real question is what happens if another thread is built about that? Like someone tries to replicate the original thread on the Twin Galaxies board. I'm wondering if that's in the settlement at all. But we don't know. Settlement's confidential. So we'll have to see. All right, a couple super chats here. Jose M says EVS versus Eric July just kicked up to 11. Don't care. Q Revere says BM is one of the Billy Mitchell is one of the shadiest mofos I've ever seen. Kate C, aka Snake Plush Kitten, says Mark Twain said it's easier to fool people than it is to convince them they were fooled, regardless of what's true. That Jeff Delaney says potential Donkey Kong kill screen coming up. And Brian Nielsen says, the girder finger. That makes sense. That's the anomaly they were talking about. These girders that you're walking on as Mario going up these girders to Donkey Kong, right? Like that's the whole thing. They said in the emulator, it produces this extended girder in one of the frames due to how it draws the screen. And so when it does that, they're like, aha, that's an emulator. This guy's saying we produced girder fingers with dying resistors. I mean, shit, that's not good for the case. Not good at all. All right, with that, we're going to move on to the other story tonight, which is Trump executive privilege. This is going to be a pretty quick segment. If I can get this pulled up. Where the fuck are you? Thank you. Here we go. There's a little bit different issue than what we've been talking about in regards to Donald Trump. This one snuck past me a while ago, and now we've got an answer from an appeals court. So the appeals court won't rehear a case on keeping special counsel's Twitter search secret from Trump. So long story short, the procedural history on this is that Donald Trump challenged Jack Smith's ability to get his Twitter data as executive privilege after Jack Smith had gotten it for the grand jury investigation. Trump was not informed that he was getting this data, and he was not allowed to exert executive privilege. And then Jack Smith was provided access to it by Twitter, and Twitter was prevented from telling Trump about it. Now Trump says it was a violation of executive privilege. They shouldn't be able to use any of that information, and potentially that would lead them to excluding other evidence as like the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. Trump lost on this issue at the district court level. He appealed it to the appeals court. The 3-judge panel says he still loses. He asked for a rehearing en banc, which would be an 11-judge panel. The entire DC circuit would hear it, and they said they will not rehear it. So his only option left now is to go to the Supreme Court. Let's take a peek at this after we say Patrick Brennan says, please read this super chat. Thank you. You're welcome. So here we go. Federal appeals court said Tuesday it won't rehear a case concerning executive privilege and Twitter. After special counsel investigators in the 2020 election interference case were allowed to access data from Donald Trump's account without telling him. The case is centered around questions about protection of communication around the presidency, and if Trump should have been informed when the special counsel's office got court approval for a search warrant for his Twitter data. Ultimately, the courts decided federal investigators could access Trump's account for its criminal probe, and Twitter could be forced to keep the search secret from Trump. This is huge potential violation of privilege. Both a trial level judge and a 3-judge panel in the Washington, D.C. appeals court agreed that disclosing the Twitter search to Trump or his representatives could hurt the grand jury investigation. 11 judges of the D.C. court circuit declined to look at the case again on Tuesday. It's interesting because the question of privilege isn't about whether or not it hurts the investigation. It's about whether he has privilege. Seagoody says, I'm going to go ahead and take Carl's word over yours. He directly addressed this. No offense, you could say you told me so if Billy actually wins anything. Okay. I don't know what Carl's word is that Billy lost. I mean, I don't know what Billy expected to. I mean, he didn't win money, I don't think. But he wins being the record holder. And the only people who's going to know he's not the record holder are deep video game autisms. And if that's not his target audience, that doesn't matter. But, that's whatever. Twitter, now known as X, appealed the order on that the social media company not disclose the investigative inquiry. Twitter had been fined $350,000 in court for delaying turning over data as it unsuccessfully tried to convince a judge to give Trump more information. The investigation, which resulted in charges against Trump, ultimately obtained a few dozen direct messages Trump sent and other data connected to the real Donald Trump account. Initially, Trump wasn't informed of the pursuit of information by the special counsel, but did learn of the search later before the public knew. Conservatives criticized special counsel's secret pursuit of Trump's Twitter data. Now, here's the interesting statement. And this is where we get to why this matters. 4 conservative-leaning judges on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals criticized Smith's secret pursuit of Trump's data from Twitter. 4 judges released a statement with the court's opinion, though it was not a dissent. The subset of judges said in their statement that the former president should have had more of an opportunity to try and assert executive privilege over his private communications on the Twitter account he used while in office. The 4 judges also warned that the court's rulings in the Twitter search case could mean state, federal, or congressional investigators could pursue private email and phone records of a sitting president in secret. This is insane. The judge's statement comes at an extraordinary moment when Trump is in the Washington, D.C. appeals courts on multiple fronts, challenging criminal charges he is facing, citing protections he believes he should have for his service as president and as a candidate in 2024. The statement released Tuesday highlights how some of the judges in the powerful appeals court, including one currently weighing Trump's claim of presidential immunity from criminal prosecution over efforts to overturn the 2020 election, believe more deference should be shown to former president and the executive branch during criminal investigations. Quote, the special counsel's approach obscured and bypassed any assertion of executive privilege and dodged the careful balance Congress struck in the Presidential Records Act. The district court and this court permitted this arrangement without any consideration of the consequential executive privilege issues raised by this unprecedented search. We should not have endorsed this gambit, Judge Naomi Rao, who was appointed by Trump, wrote in the statement. Judges Karen Henderson, Greg Katsas, and Justin Walker joined the statement as the full court declined to rehear the case. The judges noted they have never said they would have blocked the special counsel's office from getting Trump's Twitter data. Quote, nothing in the foregoing precludes the possibility that if the former president had exerted executive privilege, the special counsel could have surmounted it by demonstrating a specific need for evidence in a pending criminal trial, Rao added. But the court in this circuit have always undertaken that balance with meticulous attention to the constitutional privilege protecting the president and his office. Henderson is currently sitting on the 3-judge panel that is considering Trump's attempt to dismiss his criminal indictment, accusing him of conspiracy and obstruction following the 2020 election. Her vote and reasoning with Biden-appointed judges Florence Pan and Michelle Childs is hotly anticipated and will mark a pivotal moment in the case against Trump. Pan wrote the initial D.C. Circuit opinion in August in the Twitter search case. In it, she sided with investigators and said Twitter could be blocked by the courts from telling Trump about the search warrant. This is massive. This is actually fucking massive. This is the idea that the president, who may have executive privilege, which would have immunity from the special counsel receiving the information in the first place, was not allowed to assert that immunity. That's a constitutional privilege. This is a power of the president. It is a violation of the separation of powers to subvert that. And the justices are like, nah, it's fine. Now, again, it doesn't mean he'll win executive privilege. And we know that under Nixon, he was not able to assert executive privilege over private communications automatically. But it doesn't mean he's not able to exert executive privilege over private communications because those private communications might still be privileged, depending on the nature and circumstances of the communications. This is a dangerous precedent. And again, this is all in pursuit of Trump. Got to stop Trump. He is the most dangerous person ever, craziest president, and he has to be stopped at all costs. And it looks entirely political. This is one that has to go to the Supreme Court because it goes right to the core of the issue that at least a president should be able to assert his privilege. Whether or not he succeeds in that assertion is a different question. And these 4 conservative justices, why it matters that conservative is because this is entirely political, are saying, yeah, we've never gone this fucking far. And we should have done better here. But they know they can't undo the rehearing decision. And they can't undo the appeals court. So it now has to go to the Supreme Court if Trump wants it. Maybe it'll be incorporated in the dismissal criminal indictment case. But the Supreme Court is going to be hearing a lot of Trump. I just wanted to update you guys on this. Again, privilege over communications, breaching that privilege, and then subsequently finding information and using that evidence. I mean, that is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. It is a violation of privilege, and it is unconstitutionally acquired information in a criminal investigation, and it could be sufficient to drop the charges entirely. This is really, really critically important. And sacrificing executive privilege on the altar of going after Trump is not the right answer. All right. Alamandoria says, so they basically said the special counsel did wrong, but they're not going to do anything about it. That about sum it up, or at least close? Well, those 4 justices, but remember there's 11 of them. So 7 of them are like, no, this is fine. The Jim Tyrant says, what's your thoughts on Viper the rapper? I got no thoughts on him. No idea who that is. What my thoughts are now, though, is we're just over an hour. We've hit the 2 topics. I do need to end the show. I will Talk to you all soon. Remember, 9:30 a.m. tomorrow, there will be another stream. This show is ending early. It started early. It's ending early. My plans changed very quickly tonight. 9:30 a.m. There will be a stream tomorrow morning. Come check it out. We'll have some new topics. We'll have, it will be, a much more lengthy and girthy stream than this one. I just really wanted to hit these two topics tonight very hard. We will see you then. Have a good night, guys. Peace. Peace.
Oh, he drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along. With his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight, we'll hear some lost planning tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitter and Erlang. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an ardbeg, a bow, more of that brook. The spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the deposed on Twitter, as we hear lost planning tonight. From the white shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Doug T to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the deposed on Twitter, as we hear lost planning tonight. From the white shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we are.